China's Communist Party has pushed for a nationwide increase in childbirth in 2023. What could be the reasons behind this urgency? And what is a shocking secret that has been uncovered in relation to this move? In this video, we'll dive deep into China's viral mega tsunami. On January 8, 2023, the Center for Disease Control and Prevention of China claimed that only 37 people had died due to the epidemic since December 7, 2022. Evidently, no one in China or abroad believes this number. At the time, this was a typical scene in funeral parlors in China. A long line of people is waiting for their turn to cremate their loved ones. In a 40-second video, we saw more than 40 coffins. Under international pressure, foreign media outlets released stories on January 14th contesting the Communist Party's epidemic figures. Although the new figure is more than 1,000 times higher than the original, China's National Health Commission announced at a press conference on December 8, 2022, that there were nearly 60,000 deaths from the outbreak in medical institutions nationwide. This occurred between December 8, 2022 and January 12, 2023. One day, when you can't even acquire a number in a funeral home, one can't even cheat a fool. 60,000 divided by 200 cities, or an average of 200 deaths per city, is that. I usually advocate for truthfulness when releasing figures so that the general public can believe them. But for the statistics, I worry how shady they are. Have a look in the comment section below to see what you thought. When an elderly person passes away in a city or a town, his or her family goes to the neighborhood committee to obtain the death certificate. Why won't you allow people to fill out that they passed away from the coronavirus when it's obvious that they died because of the new coronavirus? Why do you insist that the death causes are basic illnesses and try to delete the new coronavirus? How do you get the statistics of elderly people who weren't hospitalized in rural areas and passed away due to the epidemic? Here is a sample figure for you to use. The media outlet situated in New York on January 16th. An article on the Chinese website Epoch Times reported that Master Li, the founder of Falun Gong, claimed that the Chinese Communist Party had concealed the epidemic for more than 3 years. He also claimed that 400 million people had already perished in China, and that 500 million more would perish before the epidemic ends. The article also stated that Master Li had foreseen a plague in China many years prior and provided instructions on how to find salvation in his poem. He urged people to follow his advice. I really wouldn't have known how exorbitant hotel rates were. The cost of a day here is over $2,200 if you go to the ICU, because it costs $9,650 to turn on the machine, nearly $3,000 per day in maintenance, and over $6,000 per day in other medications and medical care. If something is expensive and you can't afford it, you can make a down payment to take out a loan and pay back the rest gradually. But here in the ICU, you have to pay cash, and if you don't have enough money, the patient will have to raise it. The hospital doors divides the human world from another realm. Out of respect for the deceased and their families, and before entering, no one could have anticipated it would be farewell forever. I haven't taken any pictures, but from what I can tell, at least 5 people pass away every day. These deceased individuals even have to wait in line for shuttles to the afterlife because there are simply too many people to deal with. When faced with life and death, I feel as though people are so insignificant. When I hear the sounds of white lungs again, I become incredibly frightened. I don't know what can be done to protect people from the new coronavirus. Since there is nowhere to bury the dead, more than 100 carpenters arrived today to build more than 20 sheds. This is not where I want to film, but let's have a look anyway. I really don't want to shoot this because it's so terrifying. How vital life is. Look at the scenario now, where there isn't enough space to store the body. Keep the physical body in mind. There isn't enough room. They're stored outside, and the interior space is crammed with people and used for meals and receptions. The funeral homes in southeast and northwest China appear to be especially active, according to a satellite photograph provided by an American business called Maxar Technologies. Several Western media outlets, for example, reported similar material on January 12th. The crematorium in a county-level city in Hainan province, which handled only 30 to 40 cremations a day prior to the latest epidemic, is now 3 times busier than usual, according to a funeral worker who told The Economist and blamed the increase on the new coronavirus. Bao Jian, daughter of former Communist Party General Zhao Jiang, tweeted on January 13th, "Beijing's municipal city government has continued to beat drums and hold memorial services. Despite the fact that the city has lost hundreds of thousands of people in the past month, I've lost 17 friends or family members in less than a month, which is unheard of in my lifetime. Is this a once-in-a-century event?" The Beijing government informed the public of the wicked speed with which 90% of infected individuals went from being 90% asymptomatic at the beginning to being 90% symptomatic and 10% extremely ill in just 1 month. She received a response from a netizen who said, "I'm right here in Beijing. The figure you mentioned of hundreds of thousands may be a bit conservative. I guess it has to be millions. Outside of the big cities, the countryside ain't looking too good either." According to Bloomberg, a village in Lewis County, Hainan Province, is filled with people who feel helpless in almost every household. Now, since so many families in the village have allowed loved ones to pass away at home, it's unlikely that their names will be listed in any official COVID statistics. According to Reuters, the funeral of a grandmother with the last name Liu, who passed away in a village in the province of Zhejiang, was attended by about 50 family members and neighbors on the afternoon of January 9th, because the family had to hold the memorial in the afternoon rather than the morning as is custom. The Wall Street Journal reported on January 12th that a Shanghai courier claimed he had noticed white wreaths hanging on the doors of the apartments he delivers to every day. This is a sign that someone has died in the family. Other signs and sources of information also suggest that the current epidemic tsunami in China is massive and that the real numbers are so high that the CCP would not dare to reveal them. In this funeral home, a sign on the wall reads, "Watch the body of your own family as they go to their final rest." Every day, the civil affairs bureaus of the various Chinese governments place orders ranging in the size of 100,000 to tens of millions, including one for 30 million, although these orders typically have a short turnaround time, such as a delivery window of half a month. Are these numbers too startling, given that according to data released by China's National Bureau of Statistics, the November 2020 census shows a national population of over 1.4 billion people? Master Li, who we previously mentioned, also noted that when SARS broke out between 2002 and 2004, 200 million people died in China. Years later, the CCP discovered that the population had decreased and immediately enacted the 2 and 3 child policies. In a previous incident in July 2022, data and police records on 1 billion Chinese citizens were stolen from the Shanghai Public Security Bureau system and sold online. According to a cross-examination of data from different Chinese government apartments at different times, we came to the conclusion that the CCP's data was highly inflated. However, judging from the 750,000 sample records of Chinese citizens that were made available for free reading, some of the information has been corroborated to prove authentic. The Chinese government's silence further supports the minimal possibility that the data was fabricated. If mainland China's population is in fact only 1 billion or less, why would a public security database that collects data leave out other people? Now, we found that the CCP implemented the 2-child policy in October 2015 and the 3-child policy in 2021, meaning that before 2015, the Communist Party had already discovered that the country's total population had dropped significantly. So the population figures between and after 2015 were likely carefully retouched. Now, even if there were high-ranking Communist Party officials who aren't included in the database due to confidentiality, the numbers shouldn't be too large. Demographer Professor E anticipated that China's population in 2020 would be 1.28 billion, and he believes that 2018 marks the start of a negative growth. This would mean that after eliminating major incidents, China's population has expanded by 85 million in 22 years. It should be evident that different natural and man-made calamities and diseases, in addition to family planning, environmental pollution, food pollution, and human factors, are responsible for the disappearance of 300 million people. Several data points and reports from that time period indicate that during the 2 months preceding the Qingming Festival, where the Chinese paid tribute to the deceased in Wuhan, that is around February 2020, people were lining up to collect the urns of family members. However, despite the fact that 500 urns were distributed each day, not everyone could obtain one. The SARS outbreak in 2002 and the pandemic in Wuhan in early 2020 are likely significant factors involved. The pandemic broke out in Wuhan in early 2020, and it hasn't died out yet. During the largest celebration on Earth, the Spring Festival, transportation is in full swing. Chinese citizens are witnessing large throngs on the streets, in marketplaces, and at tourist destinations, and they feel as though life is returning to normal as a result. When I tested positive the first time, it was because I was a volunteer, and there were too many sick individuals there. When I tested positive the second time, there was no way I could have prevented it. I'm not concerned about the virus because our immunity is still good because we're young. Since the reopening, I haven't tested positive, but now a lot of individuals are, while some still haven't. There are many people who tested positive for the virus in my hometown, but I'm not concerned about it. There are many elderly people who have passed away, but I don't think this is solely due to COVID. COVID is likely to have contributed to this, but I don't think it's as serious as everyone claims. This is my feeling, and it's quite good because there's nothing to worry about anymore. This year the country reopened, the pandemic is over, and many people have survived. As 2023 approaches, governments across China are introducing subsidized fertility policies at a time when the outbreak is so severe that the government isn't thinking about how to deal with the epidemic, but how to boost the birth of newborns. On January 10, 2023, the Health Commission of Shenzhen, Guangdong Province announced its intention to grant subsidies for childbirth. While I feel quite lucky, there's always some signs that reveal the deep anxiety of the CCP about the population. In 2010, 10.41 million people died, which is 850,000 fewer than at the end of 2021. 9.56 million people were born during this time. The turning point in population growth is significant because it marks a tipping point in China's social economy as well as global geopolitics and geoeconomics. The emergence of negative growth in 2022 is 9 years earlier than the official CCP projection and 10 years earlier than the UN forecast in 2019. Is it feasible that a lesser number is being utilized to conceal a greater fact that cannot be hidden in the tsunami of illnesses? Could this be why the CCP has suddenly become so honest? The Communist Party actively promotes childbearing because it's aware of the epidemic's death toll better than anyone else. But can this promotion keep up with the rate at which lives are being lost as a result of the epidemic? Hope you enjoyed the video and leave your thoughts in the comment section below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications before leaving. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.